It's just too nice to sit inside filming today, so I thought I'd head out up in the hills or by the river to do this video. The topic today is something we refer to as the problem of evil. One of the main objections that people have to the God of the Bible. It's an objection you might come across in sharing your faith. And it boils down to its essence. The way it really generally shows up in a witnessing situation is, if there's a good God, why do bad things happen to innocent people? If there's a God who is good, who's all-powerful, why doesn't he stop all this bad stuff from happening? It's a good question. It's a tough question. Problem of evil, one of the biggest objections to the biblical worldview. David Hume, the Scottish philosopher and skeptic, put it this way: is God willing to prevent evil but not able? Then he's impotent. Is he able but not willing? Then he's malevolent. Is he both able and willing? Then why is there evil? As I've explored this issue more deeply the last few days, I've checked out my old first-year theology book, Know the Truth by Bruce Milne, Christian Theology by Millard Erickson, among other sources. The problem of evil essentially is a conflict between three different ideas. The idea of God being good, the idea of God being all-powerful, and the fact that there's evil in the world. And so the thought is, how can these all be true? If God is good and powerful, why does he allow evil? In its simplest terms, it often shows up with the question, if God is good, why do innocent people suffer? You may have heard that question raised. We need to be honest right up front and admit that there is no ultimately satisfying answer that ties off all the loose ends. But there are some things that really make it less of an issue than people might assume. It might help to think of two categories of evil. There's natural evil, things that happen in the world, earthquakes, things we might call acts of God, and moral evil, evil that's the result of people doing evil things, and because we have free will. It's easier to write off the moral evil and say, okay, that's people. But when it comes to natural evil, why do bad things happen if God is good? There's also two different pathways that people can go down trying to resolve this issue. There's the theological, philosophical pathway, looking at the ideas and trying to slice and dice and make sense of it. And there's also the more practical way of approaching it, where people are facing evil and they're in pain and they're suffering, and at that moment in time they don't need a bunch of theological, philosophical ideas. What they need is actually love, compassion, someone to come alongside them and care for them. And many times it's that caring compassion that cuts through the fog and puts those philosophical ideas aside, because God's goodness can actually be seen in the care. I would also add that it seems a lot of people raise the question of the problem of evil as a smokescreen. They personally don't actually have a big problem with it, but they're getting a sense that there might be a God to whom they're accountable, and they're trying to look for a way to kind of brush that aside. And they throw up the problem of evil. Oh, if God is good, why is there evil in the world? They throw it up as a smokescreen, as a kind of diversion. Now, some people actually resolve the issue by saying, yeah, God is good, but he's not really in control. He's pretty powerful, but things kind of are out of hand. He actually can't control it. He's not all powerful, even though he's good. That's not a biblical view of God. Another resolution is to say, well, yeah, God is all powerful. He can do whatever he wants, but he's not really that good. He's kind of mean. He's kind of like the kid with the magnifying glass burning the ants. He's toying with us. He's messing with us. Again, that's not a biblical view of God. Now, I faced evil in my life, experienced evil, pain, suffering. I've walked with people through a lot of pain and suffering, real experiences of evil. Here's a few things that have kind of helped me walk through it and process it a bit. First of all, as someone pointed out just last night, actually in our local 12 church group, when it comes to making sense of evil, we are so finite. We are so small in terms of actual physical space we take up, in terms of the world and the universe. We're so small in our knowledge, in our experience. Our perspective of time is so different that we are so limited even to evaluate what is evil and what is good. And that's true. What we perceive as evil in the moment, when it plays out over time, might ultimately be for good, but we just don't see it. We can't see it. Our view is really very short-term and very self-centered. A simple, very innocent kind of example might be you're planning to go camping for the weekend. You need to get away with the family, spend some time, decompress, and then it pours, and it's miserable, and it's cold, and it seems like, a small evil. It seems wrong that time would be robbed from you. And yet just over the hill is a farmer whose crops have been on the brink because it's been so dry, and he's been praying for rain, and that rain, that soaker that happens all weekend, puts things over the hump for him and pretty much guarantees a good crop. Completely different perspective. Our perspective is by nature of who we are, very finite and short term. And if we zoom back even further, taking the eternal perspective, stepping out of the space and time as we know it, zooming back and seeing all of human history in the broad sweep of eternity. And from that place of eternity where God has wiped away every tear from our eyes, where there's no more death, mourning, crying, or pain, we will indeed see things differently. We'll understand things that we cannot possibly understand now, and that will be a radically different perspective than our very limited, finite perspective of today. I like to think of it this way. Let's say you take one frame of a movie, just some street scene somewhere, and then you zoom right into one little piece of that frame, maybe even one pixel, and you isolate that pixel and give it to someone and say, okay, tell me, is this a good movie or a bad movie? There's no way of knowing. That's just one pixel among the millions of pixels of one frame among the thousands and thousands of frames of a movie. Well, that pixel represents our current perspective. We see so little. We understand so little. And yet we're so quick to pass judgment on the ultimate goodness or badness of some pixel of experience. We also need to remember that God became flesh and dwelt among us. That God himself stepped into our pain and our suffering. That Jesus faced it all. He hung on the cross, he died, he went through something we could never understand. The weight of the world, the weight of all the sins of humanity poured on him. He paid for it all. He stepped into it. He experienced evil. And his experience, his suffering, death, and resurrection really become a part of the resolution to this problem that we can't quite resolve today. Last night at our group, somebody else put it this way. Said that God created us for relationship with himself. He didn't want us to be robots forced to follow him, obey him, serve him. He wanted relationship, and that requires free will. And the presence of free will requires that there is the choice of doing wrong. If there's no option of wrong, there is no free will. And so by virtue of the fact that God created us for relationship, that's why we exist, for relationship with God, that required free will, that required the possibility of evil. That's not a bad argument. If the ultimate purpose is for us to experience God, to walk with him, to know him for all eternity, in relationship, that required free will and the possibility of evil. So those are some of the ways I've processed and am processing this problem of evil. For me personally, it has not been a big issue in life, even though I've seen and experienced very real pain. Because I do believe that God is good, that he is all powerful. And I hold out hope for the time when he will wipe away every tear, when death, mourning, crying, and pain will be vaporized. On one level, I can't understand how that could ever be, but that's the destination. And I rest in that hope. How do you deal with the problem of evil? It's a real problem. I encourage you to embrace the one who created you for relationship with himself. He created you to experience a full and meaningful life beginning right now, and to bring you to the place where there is no more tears, no more death, mourning, crying, or pain, where you experience God and all he created you for. That doesn't solve the problem right now, but it does guarantee a resolution.